Hey, this is Rob Anspach, and welcome back to another edition of E-Heroes. Today, we're going to talk about adversity. We're going to talk about how to use that adversity and actually use it to turn around your business. So I actually brought on Tab Pierce, who is gonna fill you in on his great adventures on adversity and leadership and all the great stuff. But before we talk about that, I should say that the hair our this is like the hair edition. We
Yeah.
weren't sponsored by anybody. No, it's just a joke we were having beforehand, and it's just we're gonna have a good time. So welcome, Tab, and thanks for being here.
Yeah. It's a shout out to all of the guys that are over 50 that still have their hair. Woo, woo. Yeah. Thank you for having me here.
And this all started because I met Tab, what's it, about a year ago at Speakeasy,
Yeah.
at Steve Sims Speakeasy. Now, we talk about Steve Sims a lot on this show. I don't know why. For some reason, we're compelled to do so. I guess it's in a contract somewhere, but this is Steve. Steve. Yeah, I'm using your sticker
If you
again.
if flip that upside down.
Yeah, but he's bald, but we'll flip it
No, if you
upside
flip it
down.
upside down, dude's got hair. Look at
No,
that. Yeah. Just like us.
Let's see, Tab and I have been in we've been entrepreneurs for probably longer than dirt was invented. At least for me. I mean, I've been an entrepreneur for 28 years. Made a lot of mistakes. Sometimes I felt like quitting. But then I thought, yeah, if I worked for someone else, what would I do? I mean, how long would I actually work there before I got fired?
Yeah.
So
I think about that. I used to keep track on the the number of businesses I started. I could sit there and go this. And I could go over the names, and after a while, I was like, I feel like I'm missing one, and pretty soon I'm like, I can't even remember them all because, I've had some that have had various levels of success. Some of them, you spin up and you spin down as fast as you can, kind of thing. But yeah, so I mean, I've it's not like I haven't worked for people, but I haven't had a full time job and well, full time job. I haven't worked for anybody. I shouldn't say full time. You know what I mean? I haven't done that for probably 13 years.
yeah,
So
I've owned a video photography business. I owned a carpet cleaning business, a janitorial service, a flooring store. I mean, and it's like,
yeah.
oh, there's some of those businesses I wish I never even
Oh
started.
yeah. Yeah. There. I'll tell you. I had one where I had this idea, and I named the company Biscopia, and it was back in like 2002, and it was the whole idea was it was going to be a cornucopia of business information where people could come in, they could get scores, they could trade information, they could dump in their all of their knowledge base. This is 20 years ago, right? And I was like, all of a sudden, I was like, oh my gosh, man, this is like going better than I thought. I'm getting all these people joining, people fighting to who can rank the highest and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it was like one of these things that it's like, it's going better than I ever thought it could possibly go. Like how normally business is, you're like, I'm going to do this and this and this. And then you're like, why the hell isn't the needle moving? Why isn't the needle moving fast enough? This was like the needle was moving too fast. And I was excited. And then all of a sudden I started getting like crap loads of cease and desist letters from people that because what people were doing were scraping the internet, downloading data or information or content, and then putting it up on our site as theirs so they could rank higher in the system. And so, I mean, I spun that thing up and it was going crazy for like 8 months. And I just looked, and I wasn't making any money on it yet, right? And I just remember looking at all these stacks of letters and I just went delete. I just freaking deleted the business. I was like, I'm done. So yeah, sometimes you just, adversity comes up and you know that, you're not going to quit, but you're not going to continue on that in that area. And I think sometimes people get confused as to, what quit means, right? If you stop a business doesn't mean you quit unless you quit life and quit doing it. So
I look at the early entrepreneurs like Milton Hershey, chocolate maker. I mean, he filed bankruptcy multiple times before he ended up landing on this right uh, chocolate treat, which was the Hershey Kiss, or all these industrialists, back in the 1800s, 1900s, and a lot of them failed multiple times before they even became successful. But the the phrase that always stuck in my mind, which is Harrison Ford phrase from Temple of Doom, when Harrison Ford's character Indiana Jones, he always said, "Fortune and glory, kid, fortune and glory," and that was one of the things that I thought would happen when I became an entrepreneur. It still hasn't happened.
Well, and we always talk about like failure, fail this, do this, get up, get whatever. I mean, what we rarely ever say is that you only really need to succeed once. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the glory. I mean, it's like it's like you just go at it and you go at it, and you just, then one day you're like, oh wow, this was a success. And I mean, and hopefully you don't quit, but hopefully you take that and you pocket that over here, and then you go off and you have some more failures, but you keep that success over here, so you don't like turn that into a failure, which I've done, and then had to revive it. But whatever. But I don't have any intentions of doing that again.
So your main business is what? Cybersecurity.
Yeah. So I got into technology in about 1989. I'm that old. And in about 98, I stumbled into what was at that point in time wasn't really called anything, but it was what we call now cybersecurity. And I did like basically network security from about 98 to about 2000, actually about 2000, and then went from 2000 to about 2003 into digital signatures, the security side of that, and then at that time moved into like application security. So now today my main business is Caliber Security, which is a cybersecurity services firm. So most of our clients end up being really large enterprise organizations that people are familiar with and probably use every day. Mm-hmm. So that's my bread and butter. So that's been my failure and my success in that business.
But when everything is networked together in big businesses, is it easier or harder to get a virus or malware or Trojan or? It just seems like we always fall for that. I don't, but it's in my books. But
it's all over the place. I mean, it's from bad password management where somebody gets a hold of your password. It's from people misusing the words of like I was hacked on Facebook. It's like, no, you weren't hacked. Somebody just duplicated your profile and
they cloned you. Yeah,
they cloned you. They didn't hack you. And then you have stupid friends that send them money. I mean, so there's that. Then there is phishing attacks like what you're talking about, where people click on the link. And when we got one at work yesterday, and it was kind of funny because we're a security company, and we have an email system that does a catch-all, right? Mm-hmm. So anytime anybody sends an email to anything that doesn't have that there's not an email address assigned to it, it goes to a couple of us. So basically that means if you send it to Bob Smith at Caliber Security Partners, or Caliber Security, I don't even know my email in it, calibersecurity.com, that it comes to all of us. And we got one yesterday from this like bug bounty, like, oh, we found this virus on your website, blah, blah, blah. And they sent it to like 50 different, like maybe one of these is right. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, and this the downside is that it like blows up your email, right? Yeah. So fortunately, it all lands in the same, so it's all like in one, but it blows that one thread up, and I mean, we get it, right? And it's really tempting to go, oh my gosh, I got a virus. Oh my God, oh my gosh, I got this. And we do we do those kind of testing, and our goal is to gain domain access, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that if we have domain access, basically means we own the company,
Right.
and it is like watching our guys do that. It's kind of creepy because they're almost like what you would expect the devil to be like when he finds somebody like, oh, hey, here's a really good upstanding citizen that I drifted a little porn in there. Oh, he opened it, guys, run over there. It's like, and it's like all of a sudden, I mean, we can sit there and watch where somebody clicks it, and then we start to get more information, and then we're going this way, and their IT department is trying to chase us. We can see the whole pattern. And it's honestly a freaking blast. I mean, like somebody will do it and we just start like, we all like gather around a laptop and just like do this, like, oh, it's fun. No, I mean, it really is.
After I released the first book in the Rob versus series, the Rob versus the Scammers, and it's just my sarcastic take on dealing with these idiots. I get at least a dozen emails from my clients every week. Hey, is this a scam? Is this a scam?
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not charging you for this.
I'll tell you this. I know this isn't why we're talking, but it's kind of funny. So about I don't know, about 18 months ago, we did a whatever it is, Google AdWords,
Mm-hmm.
and we started getting. So one of our guys did just something stupid, like put in the acronym HIPAA, just that by itself, which basically is like as broad as you can get, because he's a marketing guy and he didn't know. And we started getting these calls from like these like, I'm just like, just random people going, I think I've got a HIPAA violation. Can you help me? And it's like, my social security number is 555-55555, and my birth date is this, and da 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 da. Can you help me? And I'm like, oh, holy hell, man, we just landed on a massive, awesome scam unintentionally. And dude, it was crazy. I mean, and of course we were like, we're like, we can't keep them, but we really wanted to like create a montage. Because you're like, there really are people out there.
Well, and I was in Costco the other day, and I was following a woman, not intentionally, but I overheard her on the phone talking to somebody, probably her bank. She was giving out her social security number. She was giving out her credit card information. And I'm like, if I would have recorded it, she would have been toast.
Oh yeah, and it's someday I'm gonna write a blog on social security numbers, because it's really easy to find the last 4 digits.
Well, and here's the thing about that is that, like you said, it's easy to find the first 4 digits. Well, I just added another card to our insurance policy. Well, they send me a statement. Please enter your first 4 social security numbers. And I'm like, no. If you got the last 4, all you have to do is guess the middle. And you got
those initial ones are state location as to where you were born. So it's like, it's not too hard to figure out. I was born in Washington State. If you know that, you've got a pretty good tight guess on what the first 3 of mine are, right? Yeah. And it's but we use that. So we use that as an identifier, and those middle 2 get really easy to find after that.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the biggest security threats right now to businesses?
It'll always be, honestly, the biggest one will, in my opinion, will always be insider threats. It'll be unintending malicious activity by employees, because the employees don't know, and it's that clicking on a link, right? It's that phishing. So that, in my opinion, will always be the biggest one, is just the human error. And then it goes into things like ransomware is a big one, and which is could get really weird if they make it illegal to pay ransomware fees, which they're talking about doing, because now it's like it's illegal to pay it, but if you don't pay it, they got your data, and so you're between a hard spot and a rock. And then the other one is just poorly created software that has vulnerabilities that are easily attacked, and that's a lot of where our focus is just looking at software security.
Yeah, I know from our standpoint, building websites for clients and doing their SEO, I'm always in their websites. I mean, I'm always looking at and you got to update these plugins constantly because they can have flaws. The problem is WordPress 6 just came out and the plugins don't play well with WordPress 6 because it's got block structure and these plugins aren't designed for that. And so they're always constantly crashing, and it's like, I don't get paid extra for this.
Yeah. It just gets crazy like that for sure.
Yeah. So, and I know that you had this big adversity that happened to your firm. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, it's I'll do my best to make a short story long. It's what I do. Most people say long story short. I just give up and just don't want to. I'm just going to make my story long. No,
we got plenty of time.
I used to think I was a good business leader, good business owner, or whatever, and then I went through all this trouble, and then I found out that I really I wasn't. My history, my background is sales, so I was a good sales guy, and so we were doing at the time. Caliber was doing, I don't remember exactly, right, but we just say something like $3 million a year in services, right? So we're doing well, and we had a contract with a big company. We had 8 contractors out there, and they were like, oh, you know what, we're renewing the contract, and that contract went from, it'll be there in 2 weeks. So remember, these are 8 people, right? That we have sitting on a bench not working. And we're a small company, right? So it will be 2 weeks. 2 weeks turns into 4. And I'm like, okay, we got to do something to manage this. So in my brilliance, I'm like, let's go get a loan. So the loan we can get is a hard money loan, right? So we get a hard money loan, and upwards of $250,000, and this contract starts dragging out, and they're like, you're going to have it this week. I'm like, okay, great. Right as we're like expecting it, our contact leaves the company, and we're like, what the crap? So I'm like, okay, gotta let these 8 guys go because we don't have work for them. But we got all these things going on. And, I was like, I was just a hardcore, hard pressing sales guy. I was like, we'll just go out and drive more revenue, go, we're going to go out and get our clients to, do retainers and get them to pay everything up front and blah, blah, all this stuff. Right. And I had an internal accountant, which is there's even a bigger twist on that. And I'll tell you here in a second, he comes to me, he's like, hey, we're in a bad spot. I'm like, no, I'm not in a bad. Well, I mean, yeah, it's not great. He goes, I'm like, but it's not as bad as you think. We can get some more, we just need to go out and drive revenue. No. He goes away. This goes on for about like a week, or I don't know how long, right? It starts to all get fuzzy. And then he comes back and goes, I need you to sit down and listen to me. He goes, because I can't sleep at night. And he goes, I'm going to be just brutally honest with you, because I really have got to have you listen. And I was like, okay, here we go again. Every freaking day, man. I'm just like, I'm irritated. So I'm listening, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, how am I going to combat this, right? Because I got to combat this. I got to tame this dude down. I got to da. The more he talks, the more he shows me. He's got these diagrams, outlines. I just feel like my just the blood rush from me, and I'm just like, holy hell, we're screwed. It's like I went, well, what are we going to do? And we were $750,000 in debt. And that was to the hard money lender. That was $250,000 to the IRS. $250,000, whatever the numbers actually are, $250,000 to just, 15 or 16 different individuals, companies, government agencies, or whatever. And I just remember just like crashing, just like, oh my gosh. And, we ended up going from, I think it was 18 people down to 3 of us almost overnight. And I had a business partner who we didn't get along. It's like, I get along with most everybody, but there's probably a handful of people in my life where I'm like, when they're like, don't ever burn bridges. And there's a handful of people I'm like, I burn the bridge, and every once in a while I look back just to make sure nobody's rebuilding it. And if they are, I go burn it again, kind of thing. And that was kind of him, and he wanted to get out of the company a year before. And he said, if you give me $1 million, I'll leave. I'm like, I'm not giving you $1 million. So fast forward to the year later when we're like this, and he's like, I'm going to give you back the 26%. I'm going to give you the 26% if you absolve me from all responsibility. I was like, fine, just, so I jokingly say for $750,000, I negotiated a buyout of 26% of the business. But I went into this massive, huge funk, just unbelievable funk for a few weeks where, I would go to work and remember there wasn't a lot of people at this time, but I'd go in, I'd get, hey man, you guys all excited for today? Yeah, let's whatever. And then I'd go into my office and I'd be like, oh man, I'm just exhausted. Mm-hmm. That took everything out of me. But for 2 weeks, all I did was I would go home at the end of the day. And on the weekends, dude, it just lasted all week. And I would sit in this, my mom had this big lazy boy chair. She used to live with us before she passed away. And I went in one day and I was like, Mom, that's a great looking chair. It's really nice. She had just got it. And she's like, oh, you like it? I come home and I got one. She bought me one. Like, I freaking need a lazy boy chair. But what happened is I sat in this lazy boy chair for like 2 weeks, just with the TV on, just looking at the TV, not watching it. My wife sitting next to me, I'm totally out of it. And it just, it just killed me. And then, people were giving me advice, and they were like, you should just file bankruptcy and just quit, just start over. And I'm like, the problem is I owe $250,000 to the IRS. And the IRS doesn't forgive debt. And the best way I have to pay the IRS off is to fix this thing and to make it, and to make it work. And originally, my whole intent of sticking with Caliber, this is 5 years ago, was to, what was really just to get the IRS paid off and then go file bankruptcy. And what happened along the way is, I started paying off. I always tell people, the first people I paid off was the IRS and people with faces, meaning that people that I knew, like, so if it was like, a company and I was like, I don't know who you are, then I'm like, you're going to just have to wait. But if you're like a friend that loaned me money, then I'm going to pay you off because you're my friend, or at least you may not be my friend anymore because I'm not paying you off as fast as you want, but at least I can say I paid you. Right. You may not be my friend. And there is one guy that's like, I don't want to be your friend anymore, but I mean, I paid him, and I'm like, I can only pay you so fast. And it's unfortunate, but it is what it is, but we paid off the IRS. And then I kind of went, I kind of felt like, okay, maybe we can do this thing. And then that started the recovery. I mean, once we paid the IRS off, that started the real recovery, that like, wow, I really think we can do it. And that's what kind of made me just, realize that there's an art to turning around a business. And I was actually pretty darn good at it.
Mm-hmm. I know that, I'm fortunate now that I'm in a position where I don't have to worry about money as much.
Yeah.
When I was a younger entrepreneur, money was tight, and a lot of stress was born from not having money.
Yeah.
And I see that in a lot of companies that they either don't charge enough, they don't bring in enough, they have too many employees versus, the income coming in.
Oh yeah. I mean,
And yeah, it's just the stress is just too much.
and it's really easy to get caught up in the, in the glory. I got this many employees, or I've got this, or I've got that. And it's like, man, I mean, 5 years ago, and I really need to like go back. When was that? Because it's like I keep saying 5 years ago. It might have been six. It might have been four, but let's say five. I mean, the my personal net worth was $1 million negative, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I was obligated to pay all that off unless I filed bankruptcy. Um, but I look back and I'm like, man, there's just some dumb, stupid mistakes that we made, and we don't. I'm not saying we don't make mistakes anymore, but we don't make those kind of mistakes. And we cut people fast. I mean, we don't want to be ruthless, but at the same time, I mean, there is we at the same in all of this, right? In all of this stuff going on, and I never even mentioned this. We had one guy who had cancer, and we were a small company, right? I mean, and I remember we had three guys, so he was the fourth guy, and he was completely out, not able to work, and we paid him for a year
Mm.
while he had cancer, because I'm like, I don't know what to do with that. I mean, and I just uh morally I couldn't pull the trigger and letting him go. And he made it out totally great. He's a
You know,
client.
I
He's a
I
client.
like that word that you just used, morally, because you know, and we started talking about this at the very beginning, where I mentioned some of these uh, iconic industry leaders like Milton Hershey filing bankruptcy. You could have filed bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Morally, you couldn't do it. It was not something that you thought you could do, and so you climbed out of this hole, you know,
Yeah,
with everything that you could.
I'm always a little cautious about that, because if the IRS wouldn't have been there, would I have filed bankruptcy if I had $500,000 in debt, and that would have been the easy way out? Would I have? Yeah, I think I might have. But what happened is, by the time we had the IRS paid off, we probably still owed about 350,000, and $250,000 of that was to that hard money lender, and those dudes were brutal.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. I mean, they sent me to the school of hard knocks. Not even gonna lie, and like unbelievable. And I could have filed bankruptcy at that point, but I was like, part of it was just being obstinate with those guys, and the other part of it was that I realized that I could do it.
Yeah.
And it was painful, and everything. And it wasn't like I was like, I can do this and I'm excited. It was like, I can do this and it sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, it does,
And
because I was probably $100,000 in debt to credit cards, and credit cards, to most people are like, whatever.
yeah,
I'm not going to pay it. Don't worry about it. They'll come after me, whatever
yeah,
the story is. And over a 2-year period, I made a plan and said, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to do it. And I'm focusing on that. And the funny thing is that as I started paying these down, businesses just started hiring me. And I'm like, I had it paid off in, less time than I thought.
yeah, yeah,
But because I formulated a plan, it was like,
yeah.
the world opened up.
And that plan matters. I mean, people, I would go in every week and I would say to my accountant, who I said there was another part of that. My accountant was my middle son. So we had this like weird dad son accountant dynamic, right? And him trying to like talk to me as an employee slash son, right? So we had that whole weird dynamic. But I'd go into him, and it's really weird because over the time, there's like so many amazingly positive things that have happened because of being in that debt. But what happened was I'd go in and I'd say, in 2 weeks from now, it's like let's just say it was like July 1st, we paid our employees, and the two employees, and if there's $1 left, I'd get $1, because often I didn't get anything. But I'd say, okay, what do we need in 2 weeks? And he'd look and he'd go, well, we need about $25,000 more than what we have right now. That's to pay employees, pay taxes, and pay the debt that we've agreed to pay. And I was like, okay. I mean, and I would just go out and I would sell to get $25,000 cash in house, right? And that's the way it was. And yeah, I mean, it was unbelievably rough, but at the same time, man, like probably the 2.5 or 3 years that we went through that are some of the best years of my life, and I didn't even realize it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the adversity teaches you new skills. It teaches you.
Yeah.
I think it teaches you patience.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this real quick. So, getting into all this trouble, all this stuff, and we have this habit of looking at, like negative things that happen in our life, and we dwell on them as being like this, like all-encompassing, thing, right? We build up PTSD over it and all of that, and nobody ever talks about this thing called, everybody talks about PTSD. Nobody ever talks about PTG, which is an actual thing called post-traumatic growth. Post-traumatic growth is where somebody goes through something and they come out the other side and they're stronger than they were because of the events that happened. And it's not to say anything against PTSD. It's just another side of post-traumatic experience. And, I'm sitting there like, I'm like, this sucks. The worst day of my life when my accountant/son tells me that was $750,000 in debt. I'm sitting, and it was February, right after the speakeasy in Scottsdale. A week later, I'm doing my a conference of a different company I have, and we have like 900 people online and about 50 to 100 in person attending this. I'm having, I've got, Steve Sims is a speaker, David Meltzer, Sharon Lecter, who is funny. She came up at that and she's like, do you want me to speak at your conference? And I'm like, I'll find a slot. And then there's, and then Michael Burt and others, but I'm talking to Naveen Jain. So if you know Naveen, he's a multi-billionaire. I'm having this like one-to-one discussion with him, and I tell him about like this worst day. And I basically was like, talking about the worst day of my life. I was talking about somebody else, but I was talking about me, kind of thing. And he like scolds me. No, don't label it, because you're labeling a day that as the worst. And he goes, and until you finish out the experience, you don't know if it's the worst or the best. And I just remember being there, just like in the midst of like this discussion with him, going, holy crap, man, short of marriage and kids and grandkids and stuff like that, finding out that I was $750,000 in debt was actually the best day of my life. Mm-hmm. And people have a hard time like understanding that, but dude, that day changed me. I mean, I don't like to like, there's one guy that I coach, and he's like, you need to tell people more about the other, because you tell people about how much debt you were in, but you need to tell people like the other end of it. And I'm like, and I've always been kind of like cautious about that. But in 5 years, my net worth has jumped from $1 million down to well over $10 million up in 5 years. And that, and it's all because, and I'm like on an exponential, whichever way it goes, mm-hmm. I'm on an exponential growth at this point in time. And it's all because of that experience. And
Yeah.
I labeled that the worst day of my life, and it really wasn't.
But it's and even though you were in business for a long time, that was your origin story to
Yeah.
propel you into better, bigger and better things. And
Yeah.
so we have to have that adversity to get massive growth.
And you know what? Adversity is a weird thing, because it's like it's like this thing that in today's day and age, that we want to do everything that we possibly can to just bury it and not do it, not have it. And I'm not saying, hey man, let's run out and look for adversity. Like people look for, like when you're 20 years old and you're out looking for women on a Friday night. Hey dude, let's go out and look for adversity. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying when adversity shows up, just deal with it, handle it, manage it. And there's just easy outs. And and the easy outs don't give you the opportunity to really make colossal and lifelong changes to your life.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's kind of expand a little bit, because you don't just have this cybersecurity business. You also have a networking business that's hundreds of miles away from your hometown.
Yeah. So I in the process of going through this whole thing with Caliber and all this crap, I think you'll appreciate, I think our personalities are somewhat sarcastic and whatever, so I'm like in the middle of this funk, right? And this 2-week funk that I was talking about, like where I just can't, and it's like I have this like day, or I don't know, I remember it as a day, but it might not have been that long, where I was like I felt like this peace, and I write this paper to myself about our thoughts, right? And about how is it that I go from like this, I'm in this horrible place, to immediately I'm over here. And I'm like, it was just mind blowing. And so I write this paper to myself about thoughts, just so I could read it in the future. Like, hey, and I remember calling it Happy Tab, and, to whatever. And it was like really dramatic and sappy in this. And I wrote it, and I jokingly, and I remember looking at it afterwards, it's like, it's a freaking chapter, man, and it's that long. So I jokingly said chapter 1. And then I went off, and I don't know, maybe a month or so later, I was like feeling like really drained of energy. And so I wrote this paper to myself about how to tap energy, and about how to focus it, and how to drive it, and how to get, keep a fire burning in that. And I like at the end of it go, oh my, I look at it and go, frick, another chapter, man, chapter 2. And I went, maybe I'm writing a book. That's how I came up with that's how my book started. Like, maybe I'm writing a book. And so I started writing that book, and then that book, led into a group that I have called a company. I started a company called Refiners, and basically it's a peer-to-peer advisory board group. So if you're a business leader looking for an advisor, a group of advisors, that's what it is. And that's what the conference was. And one of the people that helped us promote it was a company called Networking Phoenix, because we did it here in Tempe, the conference, because Seattle was on lockdown. And we were like, we're going to do it in person, because why not? I know there's COVID, but screw you. And, we're going to do it. And so, but this Networking Phoenix helped us promote it. And then about, I don't know what it was, maybe 9 months later, the owner of it came and said, hey, I'm looking for a technology partner. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what that means. Tell me what that means. And tell me like, how much are you looking for, and what are you going to give them, as equity? And she comes back and she's like, okay, I really gave you some more thought. I'm just tired and I want out. And I'm like, well, that's different, right? And so I said, let's talk about that. So I turn into a business broker and go about brokering my first business, which I like to say I'm successfully 1-for-1 on brokering the sale of a business. Ironically, I was the one who bought the business. So I'm not sure, I mean, I'll pat myself on the back over here. Good job brokering a business sale, and you sucker. And so we bought Networking Phoenix, which is probably, it's been in business for 14 years. I would say it's Arizona's largest networking community. We have 40,000. I don't want to say we have 40,000 members. We have 40,000 people that are in our database and active in some way. I want to be cautious of that, because as you dwindle it down, there's a handful that are like super active. Mm-hmm. But the goal is to expand it out as networked live. So network past tense, so networked live, and really take it national, and to do this nationally, and grow it. And it's a lot of fun, and it's great because I'll tell people I like security, but I don't love security, but I like security. I make a lot of money on security. I've lost a lot of money on security, but that's a whole nother story. I make a lot of money on security. I don't make anything on Networked Live or Networking Phoenix yet. It's at best we break even, but there's so much promise there, and there's so much growth. And we started doing these fireside chats, and I'll tell you this. I hope does Steve Sims watch these? I hope he does.
I don't know.
Let me tell you. I'll tell you this, right? And Steve, if you actually watch this, come back and bitch at me, man. That way we know you're watching. Okay, buddy.
He'll bitch nonetheless.
He's gonna bitch nonetheless, but he's got to bitch about this thing again. So, we do these fireside chats, and we do them at some really nice places. They're live, we get about 40 people into them. Excuse me. And we do them on like a Thursday night, maybe a Tuesday night, but usually Thursday night. Steve calls me. Hey, wow, I'm not even going to do his freaking accent. It's shitty anyways. It's a shitty accent, but I'm not going to do it. But he calls me up, and he's like, hey, I'm gonna be in town doing this, Genius Network thing, right? And I'm like, all right. And he's like, you want to put together a fireside chat for Friday night? And I'm like, you mean like what? And he's like, like 8 days from today. I was like, okay, good, not tomorrow night, because that just is stupid. So 8 days, something like that. And it's a Friday night. They had whatever, I'm not a golfer, but whatever the big golf tournament is here, right? I can't find a venue to hold this thing on a Friday night in 8 days. Okay. And I got to get people there in 8 days. And 2 of those days I'm in San Diego hanging out with Tim Grover, who authored Relentless, which had already been planned. And so I'm like doing all this stuff, and this one guy who hosts our mixers had a restaurant called the Golden Margarita, and I'd only been there during the weeknight, and it was an okay place, but kind of borderline seedy. We do it on a Friday night. He gives us a room. And dude, it was like one for the memories, where it was like, okay, they're not hookers that are the waitresses, but damn, it's like one step below, I mean, it was like Ghetto Hooters. Dude, it was so bad. And I'm just like, I'm rolling with it, right? And it's like, and it's like, I'm just like freaking, we're just going at it, and Steve, who is, Steve's got and I love, I love Steve, right? And I freaking hope he watches this. I look at my wife at the end of this, I'm like, Steve's got an identity crisis, man. He's like freaking bricklayer. He's like bricklayer Brett meets like the royal Brit, it's like he's got like this really proper Brit meets bricklayer Brit. And I'm like, I don't think we got bricklayer Brit tonight, because bricklayer Brit tonight would have been like, this is okay. Anyway, so we're driving away, and he's like, he goes, Dad, he goes, you got a great group of people and you got a great business, but you really need a better venue. And so in my head, I'm thinking, you think? The freaking hell do you think, man? You give me 8 damn days to put this thing together, and I put it together and look at him. I'm like, yeah, well, if somebody gives me more than 8 days, I could probably do more. I mean, but I like tone it down, because I'm like, this just freaking sucked. But anyway, so dude, it was freaking hilarious. And so then he still brings it up. And I'm just like, dude, you ever want to come back? We'll roll out the red carpet. We'll shine the freaking knobs for you. We'll have the white glove dudes come in and, hello, Mr. Yeah.
He's getting Ghetto Hooters again.
Yeah. Dude. Anyway, it was, I thought, it's like one for the memory, honestly. I mean, most of them I shouldn't even say most of them, all the rest of them are like really professional, really good, really nice. Now, it's just like, I mean, it was just like everything that probably could go sideways went sideways. And I look back at it with, a lot of humor. So
how do people find you?
I'm all over them. I mean, fortunately, God bless my parents for naming me Tab. God, yeah, they don't find me at Hooters. There's a place here called Twin Peaks. You can meet me. Anyway. My parents blessed me with a weird name of Tab. There's not too many of us. I don't know what the hell they were thinking. I'm glad they did it, because now it works. So there's only I think 2 Tab Pierces out there, and I'm the only one all over the internet. So you can find me LinkedIn, Facebook, tabpierce.com.
There you go.
I'm all over the place. Yeah.
And where do they go for your for the cyber?
Oh, that's calibersecurity.com.
There you go.
Yeah, they want to see what that's about, and go from there.
So I want to thank everyone for listening, and Steve, if you're listening.
Steve, come on, man, gotta listen to this thing.
Gotta listen. Anyway, thanks everybody for listening, and this is what makes Tab an e-hero. He's always, turning his adversity over to help other people, and I really admire him. And Steve, I don't really admire you.
Yeah, who does? Well, who does really? Come on.
I only mention him on every other episode.
No, Steve's a great guy, and it's a testament to him that and his openness that we're able to joke like we do. That's right? Because I as an example, I love Coach Burt, and I'm close to Coach Burt like I am Steve. I would never flip Michael Burt crap like I flip Steve, just because I feel closer to Steve on that level. So.
Yeah, Steve's an awesome guy, and he's always out there for everybody. So.
Yeah. We got to end that positively.
But if you haven't caught my multiple episodes with Steve, go back a ways. There's a couple of them on my eHeroes channel. Just type in Steve Sims and you'll find them. Anyway, adios, and catch you guys later.
Thanks.